ASLers, welcome back. So this is gonna be another unboxing. What we're gonna unbox is these three things right here. So we have Out of the Attic, we have Oktoberfest ASL Action Pack number 14, and of course we have the Winter Fantasy Bonus Pack number 12. And we're gonna unbox each one of these and to see what they are. Now these were ordered by Dave, my regular face-to-face opponent. And so he wanted me to unbox them for you guys. And so we're going to do that without further ado. We'll break into them one by one and see exactly what we're going to be getting out of them. All right. See you. All right. First up, we have Out of the Attic. And this is going to be issue number 2 from Multiman Publishing. It's a 48-page magazine, which also includes a crapload of scenarios. I guess they're doing a pre-order of Rising Sun reprint. Interesting. Good thing I already have that one. Yeah, so let's get into this without further ado. So this is as I said, a magazine, and it's got tournament scenarios, reprints of some out-of-print articles, and of course, is obviously designed for advanced squad leaders. So I've never looked at any of the Out of the Attic. So let's see what's inside it. So a quick summary of the scenarios on the left side here. Talks about the Panzer Aces from Lone Canuck Publishing, Pete Schelling's scenarios, some ASL ones. We'll get into the scenarios themselves, but let's look at the articles itself. So came out in 2010. That's around the time that I was taking a break from ASL. So I obviously missed this one now. So I'm glad Dave picked this up. This list of the articles here. So we have scenarios Out of the Attic, some background on the scenarios, greetings from the editors. We got a Panzer, Gegen Panzer, so tank warfare in ASL. 13 steps. I think I've read this one to improving your ASL game already, so see if they've made any changes to it. I'll look at snipers. Some 3 articles on tank killing. Looking at bypass, and then some anti-war tactics, how to defeat those tanks that crop up periodically in games. So first article is Panzer versus Panzer. We probably could have used this one when Dave and I were playing the Lone Canuck Publishing scenario where you had Panthers versus Shermans. It was quite a fun little scenario. Of course, we were using the wrong objective the whole time, but it was interesting tank-on-tank action, and we haven't done too many of those, so something like this would probably be good to read up before you get into that kind of stuff, because it seems to be fairly in-depth. Complete section on how to keep your tank alive, and then a section on keeping your tanks mobile. It's something that I tend to treat my tanks as mobile gun platforms, less on the mobility part. So they drive them into position, or they'll set up into certain positions, and I'll basically keep them there until such point that it becomes time to move. And sometimes I don't use them to the fullest effect. Sometimes I'll put them into dangerous area without any kind of close protection from infantry, because I think you should definitely have close protection from infantry to keep your tanks safe and keep them from being swarmed whenever possible. Obviously, depending on terrain and the maps and your order of battles, but it's just something that I keep thinking about. Part 4 is on the dice game aspect of it, so I guess this is in reference to getting a feel for the die rolls that are required to do things. And what they mean. So, again, overall, I think it's a good article. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 pages of AFV goodness. Definitely worth a read. Hopefully I can get my hands on this after I give it back to Dave. When he's done with it, that I get a chance to read it up. So next thing up, we have 13 Steps to Improve Your ASL Game. This one I did read a long time ago. I'm pretty sure this one came out in the annual, I want to say. But it's a very, yeah, the general actually right there in front, volume 30, number one. So that's how old this is from the old Avalon Hill General magazine. But I do remember reading it. I think I found a PDF copy online, but it would be nice to give it a good once over again. And very important article, 13 steps to improving your ASL game. Um, you could probably do with reading this, especially if you're new to the game, I mean, even if you're an old veteran, rereading this many times until it becomes second nature. Because remember, at the end of the day, it's the objective is to win the scenario, and to do that, you have to do certain things. And sometimes we tend to forget those things, like knowing when to move and when to be stationary and firing, when to get out there and force the issue, how infantry and armor play into it, things like mortars and how useful they can be on many different aspects. And lastly, your morale. And that also pertains to your own personal morale. Something I'm guilty of breaking many times when scenarios don't go the way I think they're going to go. Then my morale tends to go downhill. Maybe I'm lacking sleep or some making some other excuses. I don't know, but um, sometimes it's good to take a break if your opponent allows it and your situation obviously allows it. I know that Dave and I we tend to play about 6, 7 hours at a time, and we usually take 2 or 3 breaks in between. And sometimes it's just good to, between turn 2 and 3, for example, take a half-hour break, reassess how everything's going, and get into it. Now, unfortunately for me, again, that usually doesn't work, but it's a general rule that you should look into making sure that your own morale does not give before your opponents. And then we're going to get into some scenarios. So these are out of the attic numbers, 17 through looks to be 32. So what? Looking at these scenarios, I guess there's 16 of them. Doing some quick math. So we have some French versus German in May 40. Small troop counts, but a mixture of guns, AFV, and infantry. So it's a good combined arms mission, I think. Might be doable. Parry and Strike, October 44, so obviously on the tail end. This one's got 2 half boards. And German's got to control all level 2 hexes. Now I'm not sure what board 47 and 5 look like, but it looks to be quite hilly. So you're going to have 10 5-for-8s and 4 tanks to push the Russians off the hill. Of course, the Russians have their own IS-2s and a couple T-34 M43s to fight you off, as well as the 76 long artillery piece. So if we want to get back into late World War II Russian versus Germans, Dave, this might be a nice one to have. The Queen's prequel. So here we have Germans versus Brits in Italy of 43. Very small unit mix. So there's only 8 British squads versus, what do we have, 5 German squads. Although they do get 2 20 long 80 AA guns. So they might do a business with their 4 IFE attacks. Oh, it looks like we get some air support on the Axis side. Oh wait, no wait, that's these are planes. Maybe one of these is a runway board. Yeah, one of those might be a runway board. Yeah, board 14 is the runway. Revenge of the Greys. So this is very cool. So the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scenarios are all half boards, which definitely fit onto our table that we use for showing our games. So when I look at a scenario nowadays, it tends to be how's it going to look on the camera. So it has to be a small board configuration. And then I look at the unit composition and stuff. Now this one here, you've only got 5 German squads versus 8 British squads, which is not a lot of depth um, to um, to absorb losses. So it could get very dicey. And the problem with, of course, a very dicey game is you don't have a lot of flexibility to adjust when tactics go down. So once the Germans start losing these 4-6-7s and the 5-4-8, you're down to second line troops. Probably going to be a couple of conscripts in here eventually. ELR's 3, which is okay, but you start getting 1 and 2 checks, and that 3 ELR doesn't look very intensive. Gunter Strikes Back, number 21. Oh, and the turn count seems to be quite low for all these as well. 4.5, 4.5, 4.5. This one's 6.5. This one's 5.5. So small board configuration, small turn configuration, so very doable in a couple of hours. Again, this is more like a tournament size scenarios. Yeah, tournament scenarios, there you go. So that's why they're so small. So if we ever want to get into a whole bunch of small scenarios, these are definitely ones to look at. Poland 44. This one's quite large, 6.5 turns, but you got 15 Russian squads versus 17 Germans. You've got a lot of tanks, including a Panther. No, yeah, you got the one Panther and you got a Tiger. I think it's a Tiger. Uh, two of them actually. And of course, the Russians get 4 of those IS-2s, nasty little buggers that they are. Um, hmm. Victory conditions are weird. So the Germans win a game in if they control building 4P6, and none of these two guns are possessed by a good order Russian MMC, provided the Russians have amassed less than 39 CVP. Interesting. Midnight Clear, looks like we have night rules. Yep, night rules. Again, we have elite American paratroopers versus Count Piper. December 44. So we see our wet. There's no snow. This must have been before the snow started taking effect. I'd like to try this one, Dave. We have 6.5.8s versus 7.747s. So troop mix should be quite close. And again, night rules, so Germans are lax even though they're elite SS. Americans are normal. Oh, ammunition shortage for the Germans. Well, should be doable. I haven't been rolling that high lately, although we'll see when what that video looks like. It'll be coming up shortly. Vichy French versus Americans in Morocco, 42. Motorcycle troops, eh? This looks to be a large one here, side by side, number 25. Again, 3 boards. It's just I don't I don't see us playing that. It's just too big. 15 German squads versus only 10 Allied squads. Um, hmm. Voigt's Ritterkreuz. Number 26. Again, 2 half boards. Small counts, and it's Allied miners, the Dutch, which we don't have. So we can't play this one. Although I guess we could use the French counters that came out in Cordoba. They're 4.57s as well, and we could probably just get away with using those, or we'll just wait for the Allied miners to crop up again. But you have 8 squads versus 11 4.68s, and the Germans got some armored cars. May of 40. Yeah, I don't see that going too good for the Dutch. Long range recon, Germans versus Russians. Looks to be a good mix of troops and vehicles again. Troop count is quite small. You've only got 7 German squad equivalents versus what, 6.5 plus some partisans on the Russian side. Russians are all stealthy. Okay. Oh, and they're all second line too, so for the Germans pretty well. Yeah, I don't think the Germans have been making out too well in this one. Where iron crosses grow. That sounds very familiar. Um, Again, a lot of moving pieces. This one's got tanks, guns, infantry, minefield factors, entrenchments, fortifications. Got some Mark 3Js versus some T-34-85s. A whole mix of troop types, everything from 548s down to conscript, while the Russians have 447s and elite 628s. April 45, eh? Hmm. The Amy H. This is May of 1940. British versus Germans. Hmm, interesting. Raider Ridge. We really got to get into the Japanese, Dave. Um, I've got Rising Sun. We've got several other modules, or I should say scenario packs, all dealing with the Pacific Theater, and we haven't even touched those yet. So this something like this might be okay to get into. Again, very small unit count, and board sizes are just under 2 half boards. So we've got 4 Japanese squads versus 7 Raiders from on the American side. Should be interesting. Marines are stealthy, have assault fire, and may conduct a single bonsai charge. Jesus. A Raider Marine bonsai charge with 8 morale troops. With fringe like these, we got French versus Americans again, and Morocco of 42. Or 12 and 8, again, 2 half boards. American hero must enter as a rider. Okay. And lastly, we have the Riley Shuffle. 2 boards, 6 turns. We have 6 German squads with a Panther, a Tiger, versus 3 American squads and a lot of armor. They've got 5 Sherman variants. I think it's a Sherman. On my glasses with me, M4A3. Yep. All right, next we look up Hyper Sniper. So this is an article on snipers and some probabilities, I suppose, which are really interesting if you're into those kind of dice stats. And yeah, so there's a point to stacking because you could save your leader according to this chart because your odds of being hit, your hero, are less when you are stacked. With my luck, unfortunately, especially in some Battle of the Guard scenarios, it's typically the leader is the one that probably 50% of the chance of the time is the one getting tagged. And usually it's because it's a 10-2 or 10-3 even. Tactics on how to avoid getting your good units hit with a sniper. Um, you're basically sacrificing your weaker units for whatever reason you have enough to go around. Uh, you line your troops up accordingly that more than likely the odds favor the sniper landing on one of those guys as opposed to your kill stack or your hero that's supposed to be leading the charge. Something else to bear in mind too. Again, you don't know until the counters have been set up where the sniper's going to go, but once the sniper is down, and especially if there's a higher sniper number, you may want to avoid lining up on those axes or having troops line up on those axes. Just on the off chance that you do get a sniper result, it ends up going against you. So you want to have, again, weaker units adjacent to these lines so that they're going to be hit. Whereas you may have here in this case a 10-2 kill stack up on a building that's off of one of these main axes. So it's just a way of protecting this unit because more than likely it's going to be one of these sacrificial units that's going to be getting the sniper result. Same with this all-around defense kind of recommendation. I mean, it depends on the scenario and maybe useful more for the defender to know this kind of information than the attacker. But it's unlikely that something like this is probably going to happen. But again, circumstances are what they are. You may get that kind of result. But it's quite lengthy articles on snipers, so including information on sniper versus sniper, when to do sniper checks, how your sand can deplete. And here's another one on armored vehicles, whether or not you're buttoned up. Again, if you have a high sniper counter, high SAN, excuse me, and you're unbuttoned, if your tank gets hit, very likely it's going to be recalled. And that is such an effective platform, the tank, that you really probably want to avoid that whenever possible. Finally, we have Squad Leader Clinic, and this one's an article on basically fighting off enemy tanks. So this, our first part of the article tells you how to use your guns effectively against an armored vehicle. The second one is man versus tanks. And then the third one is more focused on the Tiger tank and how to get around it to its sides and apply that killing blow. And I guess that wasn't the last article. This one is beating about the bush. So a very in-depth article on bypass. So this came out in the ASL Annual 93. Probably something that could be revisited a couple times just to understand how the bypass works and how to use it effectively. It looks to cover things like infantry, vehicles. Covered arcs for vehicles and bypass are definitely something that I don't have a lot of experience in. I'm always wondering like which vertice am I looking down, etc. So it could probably do me good to read this this article. And then what you do when you don't have a can opener. So this would be again dealing with armor. You've got no guns, no AFVs, and no light anti-tank weapons like ATRs that can immobilize. So how do you use your troops, including your machine guns or artillery fire, to neutralize enemy tanks? Because again, early war, especially with the low armor factors, machine guns do have a chance of actually hurting a low armored AFV, especially when you get to the 1s and 2s and or the rear armors. They can be quite effective at, well, fairly effective at having a chance of causing some damage, including mortars. Mortars versus tanks, well, it's probably historically unlikely. In the game, it definitely allows you a good advantage to be able to have the multiple rate of fire dropping rounds onto a tank. And that was Out of the Attic, issue number 2. All right, next up, we got ASL Oktoberfest Action Pack number 14. Oktoberfest 34. It's got 2 new maps and 12 new scenarios. So let's look at that. So here we have, looks to be a micro-campaign game rules. Now this also came in Hall of Legions. There was a 3-campaign micro, well, a micro-campaign, I guess, with 3 scenarios. that could be utilized as a series to play a mini campaign and dealing with the Italians in the desert, Rommel, that kind of thing. So this is something very similar, it seems. So this one combines two scenarios, Fuller's Folly number 135 and Second to None number 136. You can play them in sequence as a micro campaign. Winning either scenario contributes to campaign victory, as do other conditions. And depending on how you do in the one, could impact the way what you get to play the second one. So this kind of thing seems becoming more and more popular with scenarios. It's not just necessarily standalone, but a way to link a series of scenarios, almost like a campaign, to just have a wider feel rather than just a scenario. So this one here is a good case for that example. It's got two large boards, two double wide boards, 12A and 11A, as well as two half boards butted up against it, which is really interesting. I've never seen these actually in play, so we're going to get one in this package, and we'll see what that looks like. But I've never actually utilized the big boards. So this one has night rules in effect. It's got a lot of moving pieces. 15 747 elite Americans with 5 half squads versus what do we got? 18 or 12, 14 German squads with some guns and armored cars, and looks to be a half track and a truck. Interesting. Huh. Night of Nights, roadside ambush. We practiced a few of those in the military when I was in. All right, so here we go. This one's variable information. So you have different fortifications and points, which you can spend to increase your forces, I guess. Yeah, the German player may SSR number 3 here. The Germans have no Panzerfaust capability, but prior to setup, the German player may secretly spend 20 points or less on fortifications and concealment table. So it adds a lot of replayability because the attacking Americans don't know what you're going to face until those concealment counters are dropped. Different mines, wire counters, you can have tunnels, fortified building locations, and more concealment counters. So a lot of replayability in this one. A peach shelling scenario, yeah. And here we have a deluxe one, Death Takes Toll. Again, Dave and I haven't played deluxe since the 90s. This one's got Canadians versus SS. Even squad count, you've got, well, actually, no, 20 versus 13. That's not even at all. All infantry, and it's 3 deluxe boards. Wow. Hmm. Here we get into the micro campaign. So first up is Fuller's Folly, including, again, we have some OB editions which you can purchase for the Germans. You can spend up to 12 or less points buying these various features to increase your allotment. And the sequel to that is Second to None, which you play, I suppose, immediately following. Um, and then you add in the special rules for the micro campaign, and at the end of it, I guess you tally up the campaign awards to see who actually wins the campaign. This could be doable. Yeah, it could be doable. Then we have Fear Not. June 44, we have Germans versus Brits, 15 British units versus 9 SS, including 2 Panthers, a couple of Churchills, and I think that's a Churchill as well. Yeah, Churchill 4 and a 4-3. Not sure. Oh wait, that would be a 6, and that would be maybe a Churchill 7. British get 2 120mm Creeping Barrages with a pre-registered hex, so there's a good chance that you're going to get this artillery to land, which is really going to ruin the Germans' day. Red Horse Recon AP 138. Again, mix of armor and troops, 667s, 666s. Not a lot of American troops. You got 6 armored vehicles, and facing off against 10 German squads, including some elite 548s with flamethrowers, with a flamethrower, and an A1 mortar, which again, if you look back to the Out of the Attic article, could be quite useful at eliminating these low armored vehicles. Emergency surgery, again, another seems to be a peach shelling trademark nowadays, having variable purchase points that you can buy and thereby increasing the replayability of a scenario. So in this particular case, most of the American units, except from these 6 partisan half squads, um, all the Americans come on as riders, so it looks to be some kind of convoy. And 79 and 71, those are new boards. I don't think I have those. May have to look to Vassal for those to see what they look like. AP 140, Misty Morning Mayhem. 3 boards. Different locations for each of the different German guns and units. And 11 SS, eh? 7 Panthers coming on. The late word G model, I believe that's the VG. Yeah, 7 Panthers. Wow. Now, to fight that, the Americans have 3 76 longs and a 57 long as well. I believe the underscore means no HE. I'm not sure about that, what that means. I'll have to look into that. Curry's favor, again, peach shelling with variable purchase points. For the Germans, again, small unit count. We do have an 88 anti-aircraft gun, which I was really not that impressed with when we did the SS versus Russians one that we just played. It's only got a 20 AP, which is quite fine against 8 armored Shermans. Should do okay with that. But when you're facing the tougher tanks, then it's a door knocker like the weaker versions as well. The closer, board 12A. Now, I'm not sure which board comes with this one, 12B, 12A on the one side. Yeah, we'll look at those boards later on. So it's got the one board, which is a city board, or a village, I guess. Canadians versus Germans. I think we're definitely going to be doing this one, Dave. I mean, they got to worry about a Tiger, a Panther, and 2 Mark IVs with 548s and 467s and 468s all hidden in amongst the buildings while the Canadians set up in defense. And of course, they've got the Sherman, I think it's the VC, 5 Charlie. So the 76 double long should do plenty of damage against the tanks. Oh, and the enter in stream. So this comes on turn 1. These guys come on turn 2, and then the balance of your forces come on in turn 3, including all of your armor. Yeah, I think we can do this one. All German personnel are lax too, so when it comes to close combat, it's going to be quite interesting. So I guess the Germans should stay out whenever possible. Lastly, we've got AP 143, late for Chow. This is France 44. We have Americans versus Germans. 11 squads versus 12 squads, 6.5 turns. And Germans basically trying to exit through the American defenses. And or controlling buildings. So controlling buildings and or exiting units off of the north edge. So they come on the south edge. Yeah, that would make sense. Germans enter from the south edge. They got to exit through the north and control several buildings on board 54. All right, let's look at the two boards. So this includes a regular size geomap board. This particular case is board 84. Look at that terrain. Hedges, woods, and orchards on top of hills. So you have zero line of sight. I don't see much advantage for being up in a level 2 hill versus like those long lines of fire that you'd like to see. I don't see them happening too much. These orchards would block a line of sight, especially if this is in the orchards in season time frame, which most of the scenarios seem to be. But anyway, so that's board 84. And then here we have a double sized board, put like this here. So this is board 12A, which is exactly the same as 12B. The only difference is in the hex numbering, and it's basically a flip side. So if you have a couple of these boards, I guess you could orientate them a bit differently. Again, you could always butt the half board up against one of the edges, so you can use two half boards and one of these double sized boards to display your map. Definitely good to see these kind. I've never used one, like I said before, in play, so I don't know what it's going to play like. I imagine like a board, it's just a different way of showing the terrain. So it's a lot of level 1.5 stone buildings, orchards lining roads, like a village, small village. Western Europe themed, obviously, and same with this side here too. Here we have a nice church. Last page, we have a list of who designed what. Most of them are done by Pete Schelling or Bill Sisler or Ted Wilcox. Shows a nice list of playtesting and some special thanks. Most of this is referring to Oktoberfest 34 and basically how it went down. So one of those American tournaments would be nice to attend at some point, but like most things, it just is what it is. So here's a summary of the scenarios that you see. Again, they were played in the tournament, I trust. And including a couple of map boards, including 12A and 12B, which is just reverse sides, and board 84. So as you can see, you can put them in any which way combination, and it just gives some more variety to the map board setups rather than just playing the old standard size. So that's very cool. Lastly, we'll look at Winter Offensive bonus pack number 12. So this is from the Winter Offensive 2021. This includes one of the double boards, 14AB, and it's got looks to be 3 scenarios. So let's look at that, see what it's like. So dump pair destruction. This one looks like it could be fun. It's got 2 of the double boards, so which it behooves to have. I guess I don't have those because I've only got 12A and B now, and whichever one this is, 14AB. So I don't have board 11B, so I'm going to have to look to Vassal to build these maps and then play it that way, which is what I tend to do anyway. So nice scenario here. It's got 15 free French, so I can use the new free French counters, Kim Cordiga, with versus 17 German squads. Germans on the attack, free French are on the defensive, and it's only 4.5 turns for the troop count, so that's quite good and a variable victory condition. So the Germans win a game end by fulfilling one of the following conditions. You can, provided they have exited 2 of the Panthers off the east edge, the Germans win by amassing more VP than the French. Or provided they have exited 1 Panther off the east edge, the Germans win by amassing 15 or more VP than the Free French. All German fully tracked AV crews are inexperienced. Wow. You have Panthers with inexperienced crews. That's just crazy. We have scenario 37. The Vital Hours. This is a paradrop one. Looks to be. Oh, sorry. This is after they've landed, I trust. Yeah. So there's no paradrop per se. This is just dealing with British paratroopers versus second line Germans. Just west of Arnhem. So this is part of the Bridge to Far campaign. German non-crew MMC are SS. So the 447s are SS, and such a broken side is increased by 1. Why wouldn't you just use the 447 SS? I guess if you don't have several games now, including or modules, I should say, including Festung Budapest, for sure. Bridge Too Far if you still have those counters, and I believe there's another one, which all have grades of SS, including 447s, if I'm not mistaken. I would probably just use those in lieu of the regular 447s. That way you don't have to constantly remember to increase the broker morale by 1. And then lastly, we have scenario 38. 3 bars of chocolate. November 44, Americans versus Germans, 7.5 turns. Uses the double board we'll get into shortly. And it's got a weird SSR here, number 2, where prior to play, the German player places 5 prep fire, 5 burst fire, and 20 other half-inch counters in a container. Beginning on turn 1, whenever an American unit stack expands movement factors, the German player may draw from the container as if using defensive first fire, and this has a chance of laying 2 or 1 residual firepower in that against that unit, which is really interesting. I'm not sure how that played out, but you've got a chance of 10 versus 20 counters to get some extra residual firepower attacks. Now, I guess that makes sense because you've only got 6 German squads versus 10 American, well, 14 American squads, including 4 tanks. So it's probably another way to, an interesting way to account for the low number of German troops. This one looks really interesting. Anywho, let's look at the board. So this is let's look at the board. So this is board 14A, and if you flip it over, it's 14B. Now the way these work, it's the same map on both sides. The only difference really is the hex grid is different. So you could have 2 boards side by side, or you could have some variation thereof. But it's basically the same map on both sides of the board. Talk about a choke point. Any kind of stream in depth, you've got woods, you've got a road coming through the woods, guaranteed to have some kind of gun or something pointing at that intersection. Very cool. Again, the artwork on the building. So here we have another chapel that's inside the small town, next to a little cemetery. Quite cool. The artwork is just amazing on these boards. It's just so crisp and clear. And if you've been playing this for any length of time, you probably have several of the hardboard mounted maps, and the quality is obviously faded after 40 years. That's just not focusing. There we go. Yeah, the quality of the artwork is just not there. I wish this kind of clarity would work its way into Vassal, but again, the nature of the beast is it almost precludes that being able to happen. So if you play Vassal and you look at the map, you're trying to see are these two hills at the same level? Well, you may want to look at an actual map board to see what the artwork actually shows, just because Vassal, the tints tend to be too close together in some cases. Any rate, so that's Winter Offensive bonus pack number 12. And there we have it there, guys. So what we looked at was Out of the Attic issue number 2. We got Oktoberfest 34 action pack number 14, and then we got the Winter Offensive bonus pack number 12. ASL goodness all around. More scenarios for us to put on the playlist. And yeah, let me know what you guys think of these scenario packs. What you thought of the tournaments that they apply to. Have any of you found these articles useful? I'm assuming you have. If you're an ASLer of any kind of time, you've probably wanted to look for these kinds of articles just to make you a better player. Listen to experts talk about how to do things is usually not a bad thing. I know that I have to revisit these articles many a time. I've got the ASL Journal bundle as well as the annual bundle, and I really got to start getting into those articles. I just been too much stuff on the go, and I haven't had a chance to even break the covers on any of those stuff. But so 3 scenario packs, and we'll see you guys in the next video. And you guys have a good day. Bye.